My dear students, today we are going to learn about the basic factors that are present in the ecosystem. What are the components that are present in the ecosystem? We are going to learn today. And you know that ecosystem is the structural and the functional unit of ecology. It contains two factors, namely abiotic factors and biotic factors. As the name indicates, abiotic factors are non-living, whereas biotic factors are living components. These abiotic factors are again divided into physical abiotic factors, physical abiotic factors, and chemical abiotic factors. So, abiotic factors are nothing but non-living components of ecosystem. And these are again divided into physical abiotic factors and chemical abiotic factors. For example, light, temperature, pressure, magnetism. They are examples of physical abiotic factors. Carbon dioxide, nitrogen, oxygen, water, acidity, alkalinity. These are the examples of chemical abiotic factors. And all these factors are essential to make this ecosystem sustainable. And coming to the biotic factors are represented by living organisms. And these living organisms are divided again into some categories. There are certain living organisms that are called producers. These are called producers because they can produce their own food materials. They can synthesize their own food materials. They are autotrophs. Best example, plants. Plants are the best example of producers because you know that plants have chlorophyll and they trap light energy, convert the same into chemical energy. That means the radiant energy in the process of photosynthesis will be converted into chemical energy, and this process is called, as I said, photosynthesis. And such organisms which can synthesize their own food materials are called producers. And there are consumers again. Consumers are those organisms which consume other organisms. They may consume plants, they may consume animals. For example, again, these consumers are again divided into different categories. Those consumers which directly eat plants are called primary consumers. Let me repeat. Primary consumers are those organisms which directly consume plants. That means they depend on the producers for energy. Normally, these primary consumers will get energy in the form of starch and cellulose. And those organisms which consume primary consumers are called secondary. And those organisms which consume secondary consumers are called tertiary. From this entire discussion, we can understand that primary consumers are herbivores, whereas secondary and tertiary consumers are carnivores. So let me be very clear. Producers are represented by plants. They exhibit photosynthesis. They are autotrophs. Consumers, they depend on either plant or animals for the sake of energy, for their share of energy. And the primary consumers directly depend on plants, and these are the herbivores. Whereas secondary and tertiary consumers are carnivores. And all this will die on some other day, one day or the other day. And they are decomposed by detritivores. That means these are called decomposers. So like that, all these things, that means all these organisms, namely producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, and decomposers are the best example for this biotic factors. And if you arrange these biotic factors in a chain, one after another, it forms a food chain. We can learn about food chain in some other video. So this is about today's lesson. Let me sum up. I have defined ecosystem. Ecosystem is nothing but the structural and functional unit of ecology. It contains two factors, namely abiotic factors and biotic factors. Abiotic factors are again categorized into physical and chemical abiotic factors. And biotic factors are represented by producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, and decomposers. Producers are represented by plants. They exhibit photosynthesis. These are the autotrophs. They can synthesize their own food materials through the process of photosynthesis. Whereas primary consumers are herbivores, secondary, tertiary consumers are carnivores. And decomposers are nothing but detritivores, which feed on dead and decaying organic matter. Thank you very much.